stood as if waiting for a few more houses to be hitched on to proceed to a pleasanter location. But the pride of Genoa, the great Cramer Institute for Young Ladies, stretched its bare brick lengths and reared its cupola plainly from the bleak Parnassian hill above the principal avenue. There was no evasion in the Cramer Institute of the fact that it was a public institution. A visitor upon its doorsteps, a pretty face at its window, were clearly visible all over the township. The shriek of the engine of the 4 o'clock Northern Express brought but few of the usual loungers to the depot. Only a single passenger alighted, and was driven away in the solitary waiting sleigh toward the Genoa Hotel. And then the train sped away again, with that passionless indifference to human sympathies or curiosity peculiar to express trains. The one baggage truck was wheeled into the station again. The station door was locked, and the station master went home. The locomotive whistle, however, awakened the guilty consciousness of 3 young ladies of the Cramer Institute, who were even then surreptitiously regaling themselves in the bake-shop and confectionery saloon of Mistress Phillips in a by-lane. For even the admirable regulations of the Institute failed to entirely develop the physical and moral natures of its pupils. They conformed to the excellent dietary rules in public, and in private drew upon the luxurious rations of their village caterer. They attended church with exemplary formality, and flirted informally during service with the village beau. They received the best and most judicious instruction during school hours, and devoured the trashiest novels during recess, the result of which was an aggregation of quite healthy, quite human, and very charming young creatures that reflected infinite credit on the Institute. Even Mistress Phillips, to whom they owed vast sums, exhilarated by the exuberant spirits and youthful freshness of her guests, declared that the sight of them young things did her good, and had even been known to shield them by shameless equivocation.
4 o'clock, girls, and if we're not back to prayers by 5, we'll be missed,
said the tallest of these foolish virgins, with an aquiline nose and certain quiet élan that bespoke the leader, as she rose from her seat.
Have you got the books, Addie?
Addie displayed 3 dissipated-looking novels under her waterproof.
And the provisions, Carrie?
Carrie showed a suspicious parcel filling the pocket of her sack.
All right, then. Come, girls, trudge. Charge it, she added,
noting to her host as they passed toward the door.
I'll pay you when my quarter's allowance comes.
No, Kate, interposed Carrie, producing her purse. Let me pay. It's my turn.
Never, said Kate, arching her black brows loftily. Even if you do have rich relatives and regular remittances from California, never. Come, girls, forward march.
As they opened the door, a gust of wind nearly took them off their feet. Kind-hearted Mrs. Phillips was alarmed.
Sakes alive, gals, you mustn't go out in such weather. Better let me send word to the Institute and make you up a nice bed tonight in my parlor.
But the last sentence was lost in a chorus of half-suppressed shrieks as the girls, hand in hand, ran down the steps into the storm and were at once whirled away. The short December day, unlit by any unusual glow, was failing fast. It was quite dark already, and the air was thick with driving snow. For some distance their high spirits, youth, and even inexperience kept them bravely up, but in ambitiously attempting a short cut from the high road across an open field, their strength gave out, the laugh grew less frequent, and tears began to stand in Carrie's brown eyes. When they reached the road again, they were utterly exhausted.
"Let's go back," said Carrie.
"We never get across that field again," said Addie.
"Let's stop at the first house, then," said Carrie.
"The first house," said Addie, peering through the gathering darkness, "is Squire Robinson's."
She darted a mischievous glance at Carrie that even in her discomfort and fear brought the quick blood to her cheek.
"Oh, yes," said Kate with gloomy irony. "Certainly. Stop at the Squire's by all means, and be invited to tea, and be driven home after by your dear friend Mr. Harry, with a formal apology from Mrs. Robinson, and hopes that the young ladies may be excused this time." "No," continued Kate with sudden energy. "That may suit you, but I'm going back as I came, by the window, or not at all." Then she pounced suddenly like a hawk on Carrie, who was betraying a tendency to sit down on a snowbank and whimper, and shook her briskly. "You'll be going to sleep next." "Stay, hold your tongues, all of you. What's
that? It was the sound of sleigh bells. Coming down toward them out of the darkness was a sleigh with a single occupant. "Hold down your head, girls. If it's anybody that knows us, we're lost." But it was not, for a voice strange to their ears, but withal very kindly and pleasant, asked if its owner could be of any help to them. As they turned toward him, they saw it was a man wrapped in a handsome sealskin cloak, wearing a sealskin cap. His face, half concealed by a muffler of the same material, disclosing only a pair of long mustaches and two keen dark eyes. "It's a son of old Santa Claus," whispered Addie. The girls tittered audibly as they tumbled into the sleigh. They had regained their former spirits. "Where shall I take you?" said the stranger quietly. There was a hurried whispering, and then Kate said boldly, "To the Institute." They drove silently up the hill until the long, ascetic building loomed up before them. The stranger reined up suddenly. "Well, you know the way better than I do," he said. "Where do you go in?" "Through the back window," said Kate with sudden and appalling frankness. "I see," responded the strange driver quietly, and alighting quickly, removing the bells from the horses. "We can drive as near as you please now," he added by way of explanation. "He certainly is a son of Santa Claus," whispered Addie. "Hadn't we better ask after his father?" "Hush!" said Kate decidedly. "He is an angel, I dare say." She added with a delicious irrelevance, which was, however, perfectly understood by her feminine auditors, "We are looking like three frights." Cautiously skirting the fences, they at last pulled up a few feet from a dark wall. The stranger proceeded to assist them to alight. There was still some light from the reflected snow, and as he handed his fair companions to the ground, each was conscious of undergoing an intense, though respectful scrutiny. He assisted them gravely to open the window, and then discreetly retired to the sleigh until the difficult and somewhat discomposing ingress was made. He then walked to the window. "Thank you, and good night," whispered three voices. A single figure still lingered. The stranger leaned over the window-sill. "Will you permit me to light my cigar here? It might attract attention if I struck a match outside." By the uprising light, he saw the figure of Kate very charmingly framed in by the window. The match burnt slowly out in his fingers. Kate smiled mischievously. The astute young woman had detected the pitiable subterfuge. For what else did she stand at the head of her class, and had doting parents paid 3 years' tuition? The storm had passed, and the sun was shining quite cheerily in the eastern recitation room the next morning, when Miss Kate, whose seat was nearest to the window, placing her hand pathetically upon her heart, affected to fall in bashful and extreme agitation upon the shoulder of Carrie, her neighbor. "He has come," she gasped in a thrilling whisper. "Who?" asked Carrie sympathetically, who never clearly understood when Kate was in earnest. "Who? Why, the man who rescued us last night. I saw him drive to the door this moment. Don't speak. I shall be better in a moment. Ah, there," she said, and the shameless hypocrite passed her hand pathetically across her forehead with a tragic air. "What can he want?" asked Carrie, whose curiosity was excited. "I don't know," said Kate, suddenly relapsing into gloomy cynicism. "Possibly to put his 5 daughters to school, perhaps to finish his young wife and warn her against us." "He didn't look old, and he didn't seem like a married man," rejoined Addie thoughtfully. "That was his art, you poor creature," returned Kate scornfully. "You can never tell anything of these men. They're so deceitful. Besides, it's just my fate." "Why, Kate," began Carrie in serious concern. "Hush! Miss Walker is saying something," said Kate, laughing. "The young ladies will please give attention," said a slow, perfunctory voice. "Miss Carrie Tretherick is wanted in the parlor." End of Part 3.